Secret Service taking no questions about the Trump assassination attempt or questions as to why RFK Jr. was left hanging on the line. Media pushback? Hardly. The assembled press corps licks its collective loins like a docile dog. It's obvious, is it not? At all levels across the nation, too many employed in government and media are intellectually, ethically, and physically unfit. They don't live in the real world, but they talk shit like they do. They pretend to be speaking for you, but all they do is spread hot coals, hot takes, and dumb shittery. This country club of phonies couldn't locate the public square if you gave them $300 to catch an Uber. They need to be dumped at the local bus depot.
Live from downtown Detroit, it's the No Bullshit News Hour with my main man, Charlie LeDuff and Karen Dumas.
No bullshit!
It's just it, breaking news. No more bullshit. No more bullshit.
I need some prominent display or presentation in that introduction. I feel kind of like an afterthought. Oh, yeah, Karen.
And Karen Dumbass.
With Charlie LeDouche.
All right, look, for a little broken down Midwestern podcast, we bring you to biz.
We're broken down?
And, you know, I mean, we're just trying to be self-deprecating here.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Everybody knows. Okay, this is how you know. Assassination attempt on Trump this past weekend. What do we know about it? We're not in Pennsylvania. Here's what we know about it. We have Gary Byrne joining us. Gary is the runaway New York Times bestseller, former Secret Service agent, the body man to Papa Bush and the Clintons. Runaway best-selling book, came out in 2016. Crisis of Character, a White House Secret Service officer discloses his firsthand experience with Hillary, Bill, and how they operate. Then, as a follow-up in 2019, Secrets of the Secret Service. So there's no better guy to go through what happened last weekend and what the fuck is going on in Washington and why nothing works. Gary, man, thanks for being on, brother.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, so you were, I didn't even know how to get into this. Okay. Mark, get us into this.
Oh, okay. It'll go on me? Yeah. Well, I mean, we saw a horrific event on Saturday, the attempted assassination of a president.
You never cut. We'll take that up post.
I want to know what happened.
Yeah. What happened? Everybody.
But that's a question. What did happen? Because at first, you saw a Secret Service, it seemed to kind of converge and respond in the way that you would anticipate them to do. And then everybody start picking it apart. Why did they not see the person on the roof? What happened? Were the ladies that were protecting him, were they adequately prepared? So let's ask Gary.
Go ahead,
what
Gary.
happened?
Why is a 5'4" woman assigned? Why is there not a sniper on a sloped roof? Take it away. What the fuck happened, brother?
So what you saw on that Saturday when Donald Trump almost got murdered in front of us was the culmination of years and years of what happens to a government agency. The Secret Service has an important job, and when I was in the uniform division. Me and everybody else, agents, officers, technicians, clerks, when you join, you're a good person. You want to do the right thing. You want to protect these people. You want to secure our financial, you want to stop counterfeiting. But the problem is you're in a government agency that's got all the problems of the IRS and the Secret Service. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the second book, Secrets of the Secret Service, was to show people that something disastrous is going to happen. Now, I didn't predict what was going to happen on Saturday, but I certainly will lead you down the path that this is a big possibility, and it almost happened. So what you were looking at is a detail that was undermanned, grossly undermanned. The counter sniper guys were only dedicated to that detail the day before. They normally need more than 24 hours to do a site survey. Now, they had no response. Each counter sniper team, the way it's set up, is they usually have two response people on the radio. These response people work together as a team. Hey, I see this. You know, for instance, that Saturday, the podium that Donald Trump was talking from would be called 12 o'clock. Picture a clock face in your head. The podium's 12 o'clock. So if I'm the counter sniper guy and I'm trying to tell you that I see something, I use the face of the clock. So the podium's 12 o'clock. Go to your 3 o'clock, and behind that car, there's a dude bending down doing something, you know, and then they go over and they look. So that's how it works. They didn't have the proper response. It's not unusual, and it's fine if one of the response people is from the Secret Service, whether it's an agent or an officer, and then one is local police. That's even better, because the local police officer has a local connection, right? And can tell you, hey, that guy's fine. You know, he lives here. He lives in the gutter, whatever, you know. And so, so that's the way it's supposed to work. They were grossly undermanned, and clearly the Secret Service, in my opinion, based on what I've learned since then and what I knew before that, the Secret Service director was bowing to pressure to reduce the Donald Trump's Secret Service footprint. I know for a fact that at least twice the head of Trump's detail requested more security, more counter sniper, more canine, and they've been denied. That doesn't normally happen like that. But the problem is that the agency is so undermanned. It's so undermanned. I talk about this in Secrets of the Secret Service. The Secret Service mentality is, if I'm setting up a detail and I say, and just for one part of the detail, the metal detectors, the uniform division guys and women do the metal detectors. You're going to need 100 officers for the metal detectors, so we can have 10 or 15 metal detectors. The Secret Service will give you at best 60% of that manpower. And it's not the way to do it, because they routinely, and I talk about this extensively in both books, they routinely work their workforce to death. Years ago, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but just to give you an idea, years ago when I worked at the training center, an agent retired. And he went on before we had email, we used to use a telex machine. He went on the Secret Service telex and just berated the administration, the Secret Service director and everybody for the way they treated the uniform division, the agents. And at the end of his manifesto, he said, the Secret Service director's office has adopted the Cherokee Indian mentality. They rode their horses until they died, and then they ate them. And that's how they treat their employees. So that kind of tells you what you need to know. Now, go back to that day where President Trump was almost murdered in front of everybody. There were mistakes made. And in today's society, you can't tell somebody because they're only 5 feet tall that they can't be on a detail. And even if you did, again, go back to what I said before, they're so starved for manpower that it doesn't matter how tall you are. They have to have the bodies, and they didn't have enough bodies. They didn't have enough tall bodies. But what you saw was pretty good procedure. The shots rang out. President Trump had the best first reaction. He dropped, you saw him grab his ear because he got nicked, a quarter of an inch. If he had turned his head a quarter of an inch, this would be a whole different discussion, and his family would have watched him die. But luckily, that didn't happen. So, he goes down, he's holding his ear, they're on top of him. They're covering him. It's called shelter in place. They're waiting to be told that the threat has been neutralized so they can move to the best place they can move at the time is in a straight line, as straight as possible, to the limousine, which is a hardened vehicle. I try not to call anything bulletproof. Everything that you shoot a gun at eventually deteriorates. So the Suburban is bullet resistant. They're going to move to that. And does it look like it takes a lot of time? Yeah, it might to you, but they're doing different things at the same time. They're checking each other. They're checking the president. They're communicating. You can hear them because one of the news agencies had a mic on them. And you could hear them making their radio calls. And yes, they sound very excited. They had an enormous adrenaline dump. Donald Trump had an enormous adrenaline dump. Everybody there did, because everybody there was technically a target. And what they don't know at the time is somebody died already and 2 people were grievously wounded. But they have to focus on Donald Trump. So they're checking him out. his shoes fall off. They have to get his shoes back on, and he wants to let everybody know he's okay. So he puts his fist up. He's trying to be defiant. Actually, let me change that. He's not trying to be defiant. He's just Donald Trump, So, and then they go to move to the car, and you see right before they move, you see two guys in black uniforms. That's Secret Service agents. That's the counter assault team. They're doing exactly what they were trained to do. They're covering from where they are a couple feet away. When they're ready to move, they come up, one in the front, one in the back, and there was a third guy from the local sheriff's department or police department, which was fine. He was down off the stage. He wasn't in their way, and he was helping cover the backside. And he just did that by instinct. He never trained with these guys. And so they moved to the car. So when they go to get him in the car, President Trump basically, reminds everybody that he's not the easiest guy to protect. Or Donald Trump, excuse me, not the easiest guy to protect. So they're trying to get him in the car. Some of the agents are still checking his body, but everybody, it's ingrained to you what happened to Ronald Reagan. They thought Ronald Reagan was fine. He was complaining to Jerry Parr that Jerry broke his ribs on the transmission hump. And then after about a minute and a half in the limo on the way to the White House, a spot of blood showed up on Reagan's lip. And Jerry Parr asked him another question, and 2 spots of blood showed up. And he yelled at the agent driving the car. They spun that giant monster around and went right to GW. And Ronald Reagan was bleeding out as they, in the car, and they didn't know it.
Well, Mark,
so that's why.
Put that picture back up you just had up there. This is when he's getting into the Suburban. Pause.
Right.
Now I'm looking at the female agents, and look, I mean, there's plenty of tall, nimble, women qualified to do it, and I'm sure they're qualified. But they're a foot shorter than the guy number one.
Well,
number
he steps
two,
up on the boarding board.
Well, I know, but when they're taking him off stage,
They're still short.
one of the agents bends over to pick up his hat, just exposing the guy. Portraying.
Yeah.
Another of these agents can't holster her weapon. To me, I was watching in real time. I'm like, the training's not there.
No. So again, this goes back to the adrenaline dump. And also, too, you have to realize, and we found this out since this happened, that's not his regular detail. Some of these people are from other field offices. Now, don't get me wrong. They've all had the training. And this is the way this is one of the problems with the Secret Service that I point out in Secrets of the Secret Service. Years ago, they decided not to divide the agents who do investigations into counterfeit and other things, and the protection agents they need other than the president's actual detail. So now they're in this town in Pennsylvania. These agents come from all different field offices. For some reason, the director of the Secret Service, sometime before, put most of Donald Trump's regular agents on a Jill Biden or some other detail. And these people were temps. And it doesn't have to be sinister. It could just be a bad decision based on the fact that every part of the service is starved for manpower.
Well, a bad decision means you go.
Life or death.
Okay, so Kim Cheadle, do you know her? She had 27 years in the Secret.
No, she came from outside. She's there because she's a friend of Jill Biden's. So
that's how she got the job.
She was an executive protection person for a company that did security for the Pepsi company, and she may have had some experiences before that, but she was the Secret Service. The people that have talked to me inside the Secret Service, and a couple of them are actually women, and they say, listen, she was just a diversity hire, and they're trying to break that male Secret Service, if you can't do this job as a director if you haven't risked your life to protect them. And I honestly, I believe that's sort of true. And here's a good example. She tried to make the argument that the roof was too
slanted,
angled,
sloped.
Right. She has no idea what the counter sniper guys go through before they're even told they can't have the job. You would not believe the fitness test and the stuff these guys have to do. It is incredible. And by the time they pass their first part of shooting, which takes like 2 weeks, and they're only allowed to drop a bullet outside a quarter-sized target. They're only using a 22, 25 yards, strapped in a leather shooting jacket. You drop one round outside the quarter-size target, that's it. Put the rifle down. Don't say a word to us. Go to your last duty station. Have a nice day. That's
Gary,
it.
let me ask you this. Early when you first started talking, you said that the Secret Service was like other government agencies, including the IRS, and you named it. In what way? Like, what is that common thread between all the agencies that appear that obviously it's what?
Thank you so much for asking it that way. It's bloated. It's bloated with money. They do everything about getting a larger budget to have nicer offices and bigger things, and they function poorly. They have so many levels of management. You have the director. You have a deputy director. Then you have, at least, when I left, there were at least 14 assistant deputy directors. And then you have, every office has a special agent. Every field office around the world has a special agent in charge. And then there's a deputy special agent in charge. And then they keep expanding the management and not expanding the worker force. And then they took over the uniform division. I was in the uniform division, which was a regular police force. When they took over more control of the uniform division, they broke it up into smaller parts so they could put agents in charge and make more jobs. And it can't get stuff done. It was very bad when I got there, when I was there, as I was leaving in 2003. And since then it got very bad. And then after 9/11, I transferred over to the Air Marshals, and 90% of the management for the new Air Marshal program came from the old Secret Service. So I sort of jumped out of the fire pan into the fire, but these managers and supervisors don't get on the airplane with you because it's dangerous.
Well, we have a real sickness. I think this shows it, and playing off what you just said about government and its ineptitude. I mean, you can look at the Department of Transportation. What did we find out about East Palestine? That the railroad was lying and they didn't have to light those cars on fire. What does the Secretary of Transportation do? Nothing. You look at the withdrawal from Afghanistan. You look at the Secretary of Defense. He goes AWOL. You look at our Secretary of State and the wars all over the place. You look at the Secretary of Treasury and the money's devalued. It's just become a culture of incompetence. Would you, because you spent a career in there, Gary, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And just to give you an idea of...
Oh, let me jump in. And this director, that's why you need to go, because you won't answer questions, and the press and the TV, you accept these answers that aren't answers at all. And what it leaves to us, Gary, regular people who don't want to be conspiracy theorists, but you won't answer the question. What do you mean that roof is not in your ring of responsibility?
That was crazy,
right?
To me. Yeah, I mean, because it wasn't that far, and and that made no sense to me. But it is about government, and government is just more process, which is an impediment to any progress. I mean, everything is too process laden, and to address that, they add more process to it.
And political. Because we had Bobby Kennedy Jr. sitting right here on this program. He never got Secret Service, an outrage. And he said it on air. He goes, it's because they want to bleed me of $500,000 to $1 million a month for my own security, so I'm not a political threat. So we threaten everybody's lives. Does she have to go?
Well, here's the thing. Yes, she has to go, but also part of me says they should make her stay and make her try to fix some of this. But the problem is she's so in over her head. To make the statement she did about the angle of the roof, you don't have a clue who these guys are. These guys, I just can't tell you. I don't want to go into it now until you're ready. But I wanted to mention one thing.
Let me do this, Gary. Let me do this, because not everybody consumes all this. We do have that clip, right? So it's ABC News asking her about this, and there's no follow-up. So let's play the clip of Kim Cheadle, the director of the Secret Service, as to why there weren't our guys on that roof.
That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof. And so, the decision was made to secure the building from inside.
That's stupid.
That's completely made up.
That's
Nobody
stupid.
told her that. And if they did, it was somebody who's been in the Secret Service for a lifetime, and they don't like her, and they said, watch this.
They set her up.
Hey, here, director, here's why we didn't put him up there. Listen, when these guys, and I say guys, to my knowledge, there's never been a woman on counter sniper, not because they haven't been allowed to try out, but because it's so physically demanding. Now, you see that picture? Now imagine all that equipment in a backpack on your back, and you're climbing up a 1 foot wide metal ladder in the arena in Pick the City in the United States, 250 feet up this ladder to get to the scaffolding that is covered in bat and bird shit. And nobody has been up there for years. It's and it's inside, or it could be outside. For her to, these guys, they're rappellers. They learn to be climbers. They again, like I described to you, their first shooting experiment to find out if they could do this job is shooting a 22 at 25 yards on an indoor range at a quarter-sized target. And if they drop one bullet out of that circle, that's it. Put the rifle down, clear it, have a nice day. Don't say a word to the instructors.
So as a director, does she require any of this, or is this just strictly an administrative?
No, this is what she came into.
So she's charged with overseeing, managing, and executing a strategy of people that she has no idea what they do.
That's exactly right. You said it perfectly. She has no clue of who she's managing. She doesn't know.
And Gary, here.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The picture, it's an iconic picture. It's the two counter snipers, right? Secret Service up on the roof with all the gear. Right. They're on a roof that's more inclined than the roof they left unprotected. You're an idiot. You know what this woman sounds like? Dana Nessel. And close my eyes. It sounds just like the Attorney General.
Have you ever seen the roof of the White House?
Yeah.
I've been up there. It was when I got there in 1990 and they took us for a tour up there. It was in such bad condition as far as anybody working up there. And nobody gives a crap about the Secret Service. Those guys that, like we were under the Secret Service was under the Treasury Department at the time. And day to day working that, hey, I'm standing outside on the roof of the White House during a lightning storm. Okay, well, you should be careful. So eventually they put a police booth up there. You can see it in some shots. It looks like a small phone booth. And it's got bullet-resistant glass in it, but there was no place to actually walk safely, so they put up these small catwalks. But don't get me wrong; it's not, it's still rickety and metal, but it's much better than what it was. And I know I've been up on the roof a lot because when I was stationed at the White House, I had when you work outside the Oval Office, your top secret security clearance actually gets elevated up to code word because of what I described to you before, as far as seeing plans and material and information that the president might look at. You have to secure sometimes. So anyway, then that allows you to do these classified escorts of people doing certain things around the complex. And I escorted the guy that was surveying the roof to replace the roof on the White House. So I was up there for, a whole week on and off. And so I know it really well. And when she said that, I was like, she's never been on the roof of the White House. She don't have a clue what she's saying.
That was just an elementary response. Like it sounded as though she didn't even make up anything, a good excuse. Like that's something that a kid would say, in my opinion.
And Gary's right. Like this whole administration, everywhere in the country now, from Lansing to Detroit it's all talking points.
Yeah.
So somebody prepped her with that, and either they're idiots or they were trying to get rid of her.
They prepped her with that on purpose, if you ask me. Because when she said that, I'm like, oh my God, this is like Saturday Night Live. It's it's sad.
So let's wrap it up in this way.
Sure.
Now we're going to have a really hot political cycle. Like things are inflamed and
distracted.
Right. And that Bobby Kennedy, now he just got some momentum. What's the Secret Service going to do, Gary? Obviously there's issues there. There's training issues. There's strategy issues. Are they going to be able to get a hold of this and safely operate, or is this cross our fingers and hope nothing happens?
No, not really. But here's the thing: you only know
not really what
you only know how bad they are and how stressed they are for manpower, and how because they're so stressed for manpower that the training that they're supposed to get every month they haven't had in a year. You only know that when something happens like it did to President Donald Trump. And because one of the best things the Secret Service does is hide behind the name and protect the reputation of the Secret Service. That's what they do best. And I go into this in great detail in the second book, Secrets of the Secret Service. But setting that aside, I wanted to talk about Robert Kennedy for a minute, if I could.
Please.
So, and I know everybody realizes this, but I wanted to frame it up like this. There is a law that says, and there's a group of people who meet and decide who a viable candidate is. And the reason that law and those people exist is because somebody killed his father in a hotel kitchen. And then to deny him that security because you're the president of the United States and he's saying things you don't like, I'm sorry. You can set aside all the other crap that the Bidens are accused of doing and the laptop and all that, and he should be going after for just that and be removed from office. You cannot sacrifice somebody's life because you don't like their opinion. It's insane.
Agreed.
But that's where we are as a country.
Yes.
I mean,
It is.
that's literally where we are. It's all about if we don't like what someone says, if we don't like them, and using what tools you have access to eliminate or at least reduce your competition. And to me, that's what that was.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
Can I ask you this question? I know you were criticized for writing the book, saying that you did it for political purposes.
Right.
Why did you write the book?
The first book, Crisis of Character, a White House Secret Service officer discloses his firsthand experience with Hillary, Bill, and how they operate.
So I figured she was going to run. When somebody came to me and said, "Hey, well, I want you to write your life story." It was about 2013. I was still working I had transferred over to the Air Marshal program. I was getting close to retiring. I told them no. To make a long story short, we ended up deciding to do it. And the caveats were, I have 100% say on what goes in there. 20 years later, I'm not burning everybody to the ground that I didn't like. There were people that worked for the Clintons that were complete morons and treated me like shit. But 20
George
years later,
Stephanopoulos.
Yeah.
Gee,
So,
Charlie.
good example, sort of. But so anyway, there were Secret Service employees who were having affairs and stuff, and I told some of the stories, but I changed their names, and I said I changed their names, and here's why I wrote the book: vote for Hillary Clinton, don't vote for her, but have a better understanding who she really is. If you can't consider my experiences, I took a polygraph test to get there. I every day that somebody in the uniform division or an agent goes to work, they're risking their life to protect these people that half the country loves and half the country hates. So if you can't consider what I had to say of who she really is and what her character is, then you want to just stay in your little narrative, and that's fine. But here's what the truth is. Here's what happened to me. One of the things you have to realize in the very beginning, when we started getting subpoenaed and there was about 24 of us, somebody in the Clinton administration decided that they could blame two of the people in the Secret Service uniform division, myself and somebody else, for Monica Lewinsky being in the West Wing. They were going to try to accuse us of having the affair with her.
Wow. And I think it's important to say here about Gary's background.
That's how panicked they were.
That when they wanted to pull him in front of a grand jury, tell us what you know about Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. And Gary's an ethical dude. He's a real dude. So people can say what they always do. But Gary refused to do it, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they threatened to jail him if he didn't do it. Okay, so there's that.
This is intriguing, Charlie. I mean, this is probably one of the more intriguing conversations we've had. I have to ask you this too. What made you think that you would be suicided by the Clintons for coming forward?
So my first experience with the Clinton machine was when George H.W. Bush was still president. It was towards the end of I started in 1991 with him. It was towards the end of his time as president. And, he was getting ready to run against Bill Clinton, and it hadn't been officially announced. Anyway, George W. Bush is in the edge of Tennessee, right by Arkansas. And he's visiting some friends, and we're in this. And the funny thing is I was there less than 2 years later with Bill Clinton in the same place. So he's in this restaurant meeting with some local politicians, George H.W. Bush. They're eating barbecue, and the whole area is secured. And I'm standing on the corner across from the restaurant with this. There's a couple Secret Service agents spread out. There's counter sniper up on the roof of a couple of buildings. It's a small 1-level town. There's all these people standing, back where we put up the rope lines, watching them eat through the glass, from a distance. And so I'm with this Arkansas sheriff, and he has a car, and I've been standing for about 5 hours. And I said, hey, can I sit down in this car for a minute? And he goes, yeah, of course. And I said, listen, if I fall asleep, kick me. Don't let me fall asleep. Somebody will take a picture of me, anyway. So I'm sitting in the car and I'm reading his newspaper, and it's this local newspaper about this Southern Arkansas governor who looks like he's going to run against George Bush. And it's all this scandal, Paul Flowers, and scandal of rumors about running drugs, and he's the CIA operative and all this crazy stuff. And I'm reading this, and so when I get out of the car, I said, hey, I was looking at your paper. And I said, there's no way that your boy is going to ever become president. And he looked at me like he was looking through me. He said, Gary, I'm going to tell you something. Believe everything you hear about these people. He said, my daddy grew up with Bill Clinton's mother. And he said, I'm telling you right now, everything you hear about these people, believe it. And the crazier it is, the more likely it's true. And that it never left my mind. I mean, that guy, I never saw that guy again. We went on with our lives, but his severity, it would be like a doctor saying, hey, you cut your foot a week ago and you have a bad staph infection. It rung a bell in me. And so anyway, so I always kept that in the back of my mind. And so when I got subpoenaed, and, in the meantime, there have been all these stories coming out from the Arkansas State Police and other people. And as time went by, every one of them ended up being true. And, there was the story about this guy that was supposedly helping Bill Clinton run drugs or something when he was the governor of Arkansas. And he was a friend of theirs. And then the FBI supposedly flipped him. And then they found him on the side of the road in a car. And they said he'd been run off the road by accident, but he had 2 bullet holes in the back of his head. So the joke became, a 1-car Arkansas suicide. So yes, and so did my coworkers. Like, they were always
a legitimate threat.
Yeah. Well, I was afraid it could be. So I took some precautions. I contacted a friend of mine who had been a lawyer for the CIA at one time, and his firm represented me pro bono, and nobody knew about it. I had no legal obligation to tell anybody else that I had other representation. So I was sort of
okay. So we got to talk to him again, like after. I mean, just first of all, I'm going to order both of your books because I'm extremely intrigued. But one key takeaway, especially as we enter into this election season, that I think everybody should listen to. It's not if you're going to support somebody or criticize or not support somebody, do it in its entirety in an honest capacity. And I say that about Joe Biden, and everybody's like, oh, he doesn't. Look at the whole person and look at who they are. If you still want to support them, that's fine, but do it honestly and do it objectively. And that's what people don't want to do. They want to dismiss the things that would otherwise be critical or negative about the people that they support. If you're going to support them in comprehensively.
Yeah, and I'm going to be snobby about it. I'm going to be snobby. I get 1 vote, everybody else gets 1 vote. Can you do me a favor and do some fucking work? And that's just how I feel. That's really not working for my neighborhood, and is not working for my city. It's not working for this country. It's your right to do what you want, but come on, do some work. Look at everything.
We don't make them, Charlie, and they just kick the can and keep it going.
Oh, my daughter and I are co-writing a piece, like prospects of Bobby Kennedy, her viewpoint of Bobby Kennedy, and my viewpoint of my daughter, what I think my daughter is, and then my daughter writes back, no, this is who I am.
Oh, that's good.
So it's a father wondering about his daughter, the daughter looking at dad, that's what you think about me, and this is what I think in life. So it's cool, and she's a great writer. I think there could be a career there, and I was like just really proud of what I saw. So I'm glad mine's doing that.
That's good.
And I would hope that everybody would encourage their kids to do it, and for people to serve and do it honorably and tell the truth, like Gary Byrne, best-selling author, former Secret Service. Gary, you will come back?
Sure, anytime.
Because what I'm hearing here is the Secret Service is fucked up. It can't be fixed in the short term, and now this wasn't a one-off. You got a pretty good look at what goes on underneath the sheets.
And DEI hires aren't just about race. If you're saying that it's about friendship, it's about white women, it's about people that don't that you're checking a box without determining whether or not those qualifications exist, because this lady is proof positive.
Well, Ed, look, watch this. A DEI hire, like, you can be competent, right?
That's true.
Like,
that's true.
I'm not saying Kamala Harris is competent, but she's got the resume, right? Or you look at, you just look at a lot of people.
Everybody has a resume, Charlie.
Well, that's what makes.
I mean, you can. People write resumes. I could make myself sound like the most intelligent, experienced person in the world until you get in the room and the proof is maybe a little different.
I didn't want to say anything.
Well, gee, Charlie, thank you.
Hey, can I make a comment about something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a little distracted earlier, but we were talking about the video, and when trying to put Donald Trump into the armored Suburban, and the Secret Service agent, the woman's trying to holster her gun. So yeah, thank you. So she's dealing with a massive adrenaline dump. I started to say that, but the other thing too is she might not routinely always wear body armor, and you can see she's got it on. It pushes the holster out of the way.
Yes.
What you see her struggling with, I'm not concerned. She held onto the gun. She's still looking. You know, this is the difference between real life and what we see in movies and TV. Right. And does everybody there and need some more, continuous training? Sure, they do. That we've proved that, thousands of years ago. And but because they're so poorly managed and there's so little manpower, they're not getting the training that they need. That was better than it could have been. I mean, it could have been worse than what you saw. So I sort of knock on wood at times. And having been in scenarios,
might as well rewind that a second. Okay, that's true.
Their sunglasses,
running around all like chicken.
Yeah, it's a nervous, right?
Okay,
it's a nervous chick.
Okay,
yeah, but you don't have time for that.
Look at the men to her right, the one in the uniform with his weapon, and the other Secret Service agent, calm, collected, commanding the crowd, eyes up, tall.
But let's not say that women are emotional. I mean, that's
that's
a blessing and a curse. I get that.
Right.
But I think that, as Gary pointed out, there's a level of training and preparation that has to exist. So if you're able to do that within the confines of who you are, your height, your gender, more power to you.
Well, I'm listening to Kimberly Cheadle, the director of the Secret Service, saying, by the end of the decade, we want this to be 30% women. Why? How about 30% more effective?
Yeah, but people get caught up on that, though, Charlie.
There's a lot of collegiate athletes. Not everybody makes it to the WNBA.
Right.
These are top-notch, right? Tall, really nimble people.
I couldn't do it.
No, you couldn't do it.
Damn.
No, you couldn't do it. Why not go recruit them? Why not pay agents better? Everybody else is getting paid better.
And give them the training. Gary said they probably haven't had the regular training.
Over the years, when I was in the Secret Service, and especially when I was at the training center, the Secret Service does naturally get broken athletes, a lot of broken athletes, men and women. Big giant football players that were, that fraction of a second too slow, or they had gotten into the NFL or the Major League Baseball or even basketball, and then they twisted the ankle and that was it, or the knee, and so, and I'm just saying this kind of humorously. We had when I was there was a lot of big dudes, and I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2", but I was never like a borderline professional athlete. But they do get their share of those of type people, and they're usually the funniest people to train because they're so freaking athletic that you almost have to rein them in a little bit.
Something to prove.
So you think I could try out for the Secret Service?
No.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Like Gary was saying, there's a lot of desk jobs. And apparently you're as qualified as the director.
But I'll tell you one thing. I could be the director. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you. And I can shoot. So I get, two things.
All right, Gary Byrne, hey, thanks so much for being on, brother.
My pleasure.
Really do.
Thank you.
Now what we'll do is word from our sponsors.
American Coney Island. So good, even Al Roker from the Today Show eats here. Not like that other guy, Al Joker, who eats at Lafayette. So make sure you're a Roker and not a Joker. American Coney Island.
Well, you know, when it rains, the power goes out. And when the power goes out, the internet goes out. When the internet goes out, I call my friend Matt and Bernie at XG Service Group. Look at Bernie here on his hands and knees, giving it everything he's got. Look at that man crack. So busy, he forgot to wear a belt. There's Matt right there getting the board together. That's 734-245-4100 if you need Matt and Bernie to come take care of your voice over internet, your security cameras, off-campus access control, Wi-Fi, and cameras for homes and business. They'll design it for you. You got restaurants, they do drive-through systems, railroad cameras for public safety, total wireless camera systems for your home and business. Yeah, that's right. Call XG Services at 734-245-4100. Okay, Gary, pick up your pen. Listen what I got to tell you here. The politicians lie to you. The media lies to you. So how do you know if your investment statements are lying to you? Remember, you're not managing your wealth, Gary. That's some unseen guy working for a big bank, jockeying some unknown algorithm, but he's not making decisions based on what's best for you, Gary. He's making decisions on what's best for his bonus, gambling with your hard-earned dollars. So you should know your money man, and you don't have a money man. I know you don't. Pick up the pen.
He may.
That's. Would you not get the pen? I hear you.
He needs a better one.
And he's writing it down. Yeah, look at the shabby office back there. Gary could use a couple of bucks.
What can we use here?
Look, that's why I work with financial specialist Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. He'll tailor a financial plan specifically for you, Gary. From annuities to retirement accounts to college savings, the whole nine. He'll keep you up to date, and he's always a phone call away. Let Luke Nowacki worry so you don't have to. Luke Nowacki, ready? 248-663-4748. Right? Read that back to me.
663-4748.
What's the area code?
I didn't get it. Go give it to me again.
248. And it's Luke Nowacki. Dude, and do me a favor, because he would love to talk to you. You're going to love this guy. Will you do me that favor? Will you give Luke a call today?
Yeah, I'll see. Well, not today. Yeah, I will. I will later.
I mean, he just he likes to talk about the things you're into. Let me just put it like that, and it would be cool. I think he would like that. Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. All right. So let me tell you, there is a murder trial in Detroit. Do you remember when Hamas jumped into Israel and slaughtered 1,400 people? You remember that, Gary, right? There was a murder of a Jewish leader here in Detroit 2 weeks later, Samantha Woll. Yeah. You might have heard of it because everybody thought, ooh, it might be Hamas. We're going to, look for the Arab angle here. There wasn't one. Then one of her lovers calls the police a couple weeks later and confesses to it. Did you hear about this?
I did.
Okay. And then they let him go. He lawyers up, and then they start doing the videotape, and it's like a Jesse Smollett type of shit. And they find a black burglar guy, right? Good suspect. His phone's in the area, and he's got 2 drops of blood of hers on his arm. So, obviously, you know the case. There's a lot of reasonable doubt in this thing. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to wonder why the prosecutor brought it. And
had to.
I was in the hallway. The jury's right now is hung, and the judge is trying to encourage him to stay with it. The family came up to me in the hallway, and they listened to the podcast, and they're hurting. And remember, my sister was killed at Brightmoor. Mm-hmm. I feel it.
Terrible.
And they're like, you might have got a few things wrong. I go, well, let's correct that. What did we get wrong? And they're like, there was a picture of a white guy leaving the parking lot, right, earlier in the night, that the police never tracked where he went. Right. And the defense attorneys blew up the picture, and it's a guy with a beard, a George Michael haircut, dark glasses, and a jacket. And the defense attorney put a picture next to it of the boyfriend, and it looks exactly alike. But the family said that picture's false. He just put it in there. Jeffrey didn't do this. Jeffrey's a nice guy, right? That's not Jeffrey, and that picture's false. So I went to the defense attorney, Brian Brown, very good attorney, and I go, family wants to know where you got that. That wasn't entered into evidence. That's not him. And he said, no, that is a blown up picture from his interrogation when the police came to pick him up after he called the police and said he did it. So that's where that's at. Okay. Now, The jury's hung, but this is weird. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, or Gary or Mark. They've been deliberating 3 full days. The trial's gone on over a month. One of the jurors says, I have a pre-planned vacation. A pre-planned vacation. And the judge dismisses the juror. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't want to judge anybody, but when a justice for a woman, right, is on the line, compounded by the fact that you may or may not have the right man fighting for his life, I'm not going on vacation.
Right.
But the judge allows it. Then yesterday, they're dismissed early. Why? Because another juror had a doctor's appointment.
Yep.
We can't do the doctor's appointment next week. The doctor won't understand. I don't understand that.
I don't understand. I've never heard of anything like that.
And then today,
there's more?
They're not there because one of the jurors' babysitters has a doctor's appointment. You ever heard of this, Gary?
No, I haven't. And having been on the wrong end of the justice system, I tell you, I never heard any of those things.
Okay, and then our courthouse isn't owned by the county. It's owned by a billionaire. Dan Gilbert now owns it, right? And it's not being upkept. So yesterday, it was in the 90s, it was muggy. The air conditioning in the courthouse broke down. The weeds in front of the courthouse have not been mowed. There's no respect for the public square here, right? I'm talking to one of the bailiffs. They stopped vermin control. There's rats running around the courthouse. What is this?
It's blatant negligence, and nobody seems to care. It's been normalized. I think people are just almost accustomed to people not doing what they're supposed to do, to receiving substandard service, lack of consideration, lack of respect, lack of courtesy. And that's who and where we are these days. That's
why I wanted Gary to hang out, because it's at all levels. Now, I'm hanging out there, dude, as I'm wont to do. I know how to work a courthouse while a jury's deliberating. Couple of ladies that work victim services, right? They're leaving. Their caseload's over 1,000. We're talking homicide victims, domestic abuse victims, rape victims. They're making $20 an hour.
So does McDonald's workers.
Right. So I said to him, what's that?
And they get dental.
And they get dental.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm talking to the ladies. Is it true? Because the authorities, you know, those running stuff, Gary, say, yeah, about 400 people accused of sexual assault. That's rape. And, you know, about 400 are on tether. They're out. But according to cops I know and the ladies that deal with the victim, it's well over 1,000. So to tell me this is a comeback, it's a lie.
But everything's safe, Charlie. We've got growing population. The crime is down since the 60s. We've got increased wealth. The housing stock is up. Everything's perfect. What are you talking about? This is utopia.
Whose wealth has increased?
That's what we want to find out. That's the narrative and you mentioned that narrative. That's what we're living here is a narrative, and the reality contradicts that.
My wealth's increased because I work with Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies at 248-663-4748.
That's right.
For sound financial advice. Okay, now and then finally, just because we were talking before the show just about elections and stuff, and so I went to election training this weekend. As you know, I worked the polls, the absentee.
The captain, weren't you?
I was the captain in 2020. No 150,000 ballots were trucked in. And there's an easy way to verify this, folks. Like, I can't talk Pennsylvania, Gary, because I don't like when media or reporters overextend themselves. I do my work. I let those in Philly do their work, and then we can compare the work.
Sure.
The way you know that 150,000 ballots did not come in at 4 a.m. is real simple. There's a computer that I, the captain of the board, the envelope containing the ballot gets scanned. There's a timestamp in the computer when these 150 came in. They didn't come in. You can track when each one came in, right? By the end of the night, the number of envelopes should match the number of ballots. That's called balancing the precinct. And sometimes me, the guy scanning it, I missed the scan. I'm tired. I've been there 16 hours. I thought it went beep, and it didn't go beep, and I handed it to Wanda next to me, and then we processed it. The vote is legit. It's being tabulated. Human error. I didn't scan it right. So I go to training, and there's no computer. And I asked him, I go, where's the computer? I go, we're not using them this time around. I go, why? He said, because the software hasn't been certified. So I'm not quite sure what that means. So I asked Karen Dumas, Gary. Karen was basically the deputy mayor of Detroit. Karen was the one trying to land this airplane as it was going into bankruptcy, right? So Karen is a really super connected. I go, do what you can do, Karen. And what did you find out, Karen Dumas?
Well, first I was asking about the tabulators because I didn't have a clear understanding of what you, and so I asked.
The tabulator's the machine.
Right, the machine when you
put your
insert,
ballot in
right,
it
when
and
you
it
go to
reads
vote.
it.
And so when that question was asked, well, first of all, let me say this. I personally called the city clerk's office. I said, as a resident, let me just call the helpline, call the office. On the website, it says, hey, if you need
Like
help,
any
have
other
questions.
citizen would do.
Exactly. Nobody answered the phone. I mean, any of the numbers, I pressed 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, nobody answered. So I said, okay, I knew somebody that knew somebody. And so I called them. And they asked a person, they said, no, the tabulators, are intact. And so when I got it clarified, I said, no, I need to know this. They asked them again. They didn't respond at all. So I asked someone else who could reach out to the Department of Elections. Again, the tabulator question immediately responded, yeah, we got it. The second time was the clarification in terms of the electronic. About 3 hours later, they responded, to my person and just said, yeah, they're intact. I do want to say that I did reach out to the county clerk's office and I did get an immediate response, and they just said that those things are intact for the upcoming election.
They're not.
That was it.
It's called the electronic voter file, right?
Right.
And it's a backup. Okay, so when you mail in or drop box your absentee ballot, it goes to headquarters, Detroit City Clerk. They're going to input it and give it a stamp. Okay, as a backup, when it comes to me, I input it. So at the end of the night, you print the receipts. Okay, this is how many votes we had. This is how many envelopes we have. Now they're just going to be hand counted. So it throws doubt into it.
Right.
And again, I'm not able to report to the public when each of these things were actually tabulated. It's 4 years later. I don't see how this is improved. And I think the reason they're doing it is most of the people that work these elections are older people. They're sequestered. You got to be in there for 15 hours. You got to bring your own food. You're tired. And if there's one more ballot than there is envelope, the precinct is considered out of balance, just one, and it can't be recounted. So I think what they're trying to do is take the human error out, but there's no double check, and there's no surety.
But Charlie, this is the thing. This is 2024. We've been talking about accuracy. We've been talking about integrity. We've been talking about voting. Purging the voter rolls, just the whole 9 yards. So we've got driverless vehicles. We've got people hanging out in space because they can't come back and they're fine. We've got all these things that indicate that technology has taken us far ahead. What is the problem with being able to have a process in place where there is accuracy in voting?
I know.
Go ahead, Gary.
Oh, tell us.
Accuracy. They don't want accuracy. They want to be able to back a station wagon up, a minivan, full of manufactured ballots and have nobody question it and have no way, the next day when somebody says it happened, no way to prove it. That's what they want.
Now, see this?
And that's not a conspiracy.
Well, the powers that be, I want you to listen to me. Gary has served this country his entire life. Gary is a open-minded guy. Gary's a patriot, little p. I don't like when people call themselves patriots. That's a title bestowed upon you by others.
Little p.
Little p.
Correct.
Okay. So Gary Little P, look what he just said. You're leaving him to imagine, right? Just like the incident in Pennsylvania with the sniper, when you don't have agents up there, when they're within the perimeter and sloped roofs. You're leaving us to wonder, reasonable people. What I'm saying is I need to be the middle arbiter here as the reporter. Gary's starting to suspect you're backing up trucks. There was video from 2020 at TCF where they're backing up trucks at 4 a.m, and I happened to be there. And I go, there wasn't 150,000 ballots there. There was about 10,000. I know because I got one of the boxes with 11 ballots in it, and it's electronically marked when I inputted those. If you remove this extra little layer, you increase doubt. And what we need to do is decrease the doubt.
But do you see the parallel to the trial? Reasonable doubt. And as long as there's reasonable doubt, then you can't rest assured that the outcome is fair and accurate.
And that takes us out to remember how we started the show. Gary Byrne, Secret Service agent, protector of presidents of the United States, said the government's bloated, it's ineffective, and it's all about contracts and jobs and nepotism. That's what needs to change, and we all agree, except if you belong to the bureaucracy or the parties. Think for yourselves, folks, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Gary Byrne, for being with us.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, brother.